All right, this is great. so, so this is a special episode of Live from the Living Room. This is a special episode of Live from the Living Room because it's the first of very many episodes of Live from the Living Room where I get to bring on, wonderful people like yourself on the podcast or into this space. So right now, we have Wayne Moody, life coach, a child of the Most High, dream builder, my life coach. Wayne, how you feel today?
Excited.
Okay.
Very much excited. It's my pleasure to be next to you, seeing you doing what you're doing. It's one thing to hear what you do, but it's another thing to be in the space as you're actually doing it. That really means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Wayne, you've been doing a lot of traveling lately.
Yes, sir.
Over the last couple of months.
Yes.
Okay, so just like, how was that being? Like, what have you been doing while you're traveling? Like, let us know a little bit more about that.
Well, let me tell you a little bit of what I've been doing before.
Right.
Because even before I started this trip, I did a 14-day detox.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make sure that I was in the best shape, the best health, being able to deal with any kind of virus, bacteria that you might encounter. Because when you travel, especially traveling across the country, you could be susceptible. You're in airplanes, so you want you to be at the top health possible. But I left home from Houston August 28th, and my first stop was to actually officiate a wedding for two of my clients, Eric and Jamaica. And
Right.
that was like seeing them standing on the podium getting the gold, and they winning. That was my win too.
Wow. And you said that was in LA, right?
Yeah, it was in LA on September 1st.
Okay. Man, I wish I could have made it to that wedding. And you said a lady had crashed that wedding?
Oh yeah, there's a girl who went on Eventbrite and she found the wedding and she went to the wedding, and of all the tables she sat at the reception, she sat at my table. But Eric and Janika, a part of their reception was that you would go up to the table and take a picture with the bride and the groom.
Right.
So when it was time to go, she went up with me and she introduced herself as, "Hey, I came here and I crashed your wedding." And she had sent gifts. She had actually took a card for them.
Uh-huh.
But Eric and Janika had took it so amazing. And even after that, there were like 3 different media houses that reached out to Eric and Janika, and it made news. Mm-hmm. So their wedding became something that was even bigger than what they thought it was going to be.
I never seen anybody put a wedding on Eventbrite. So
because I think with Eventbrite you could get responses to know exactly who's coming, but people don't just respond to an invite unless they're familiar with it. But they don't charge you when you put it like that on Eventbrite, especially if you're not paying for the wedding. As far as you're not buying a ticket,
right?
So you can just put it up there so you can get feedback from your guests.
They might have just started a trend. For real.
Well, she said she was on TikTok, and she said, "I'm not saying that you should go on Eventbrite and go to weddings." And she's actually, I think she's working on her master's. Brilliant girl. Brilliant.
All right, Wayne, let us know like more about young Wayne, like Wayne growing up. Wayne growing up in Belize, and you coming to the United States. Like, talk to us about that.
Wayne in Belize, 7, 8, 9 years old. I would take my allowance and buy candy and have school. I would teach, and I would get my brother and friends come to school, and I would grade the papers, and I was a little teacher from 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
So I was teaching as long as I know myself. And then I went to college, and then I started teaching.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Belize, and then after I finished junior college in Belize, I taught for a year. And then I went to Jamaica, and then I went to school in Jamaica, and then I went back home, and then I taught for a while in Belize, and then couple jobs I had, but the last job I had in Belize, I was the youngest member on the team that managed the prison. So I was the director of programs of the prison in Belize, and that took me abroad as an ambassador on a couple of occasions. So coming from the South Side, and South Side is South Side no matter where you are. So I came from the South Side. One of the most traumatic things that I experienced was that at 14 years old, my mom went to an event, and there was crowd control, and there was this police officer that was a bully, and he handled my mom, and my mom lost her life. And at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, I was in my mind calculating what I was going to do in order to take his life. Because at 14, and my youngest brother was not even just 2. And I would coach my brothers, telling them, as long as we're alive, he can't be alive. But, it's amazing. At 18, I met this man named Jesus. And my perception started changing. And a couple years after, he was found with a bullet in his head.
Wow.
And all I felt was compassion for him. But at 18 was when I was challenged to become a world changer. A friend of mine took me to a meeting, and the speaker was saying, like today, the world is in a dilemma and needs to change. And he said the only way the world can change is if people change. And the only way people change is if you really connect with God. So why don't you give your life to God and be connected to God and be a world changer? So for over 4 years, I've been a world changer. So I've been transforming from then. And that's what I do now as the minister of transformation, because I say the person I was yesterday is not the person I'm at today. And the person I'm going to be tomorrow is not going to be the person I am today, because every day I'm evolving. Every day I'm becoming better.
We're transforming. Right here in the moment. So, like, the situation that happened, with the police officer, it was a very traumatic experience. And one of the things that you had taught me, and one of the things that I got the most out of the dream building course, was the forgiveness part. And I didn't I didn't even know I had to forgive these people. Because, you kind of suppress it. You kind of, like, just don't think about it. But all that still is, like, harboring there. So can you talk more about, like, forgiveness and what can that actually do for people that want to build their dreams?
When you get a wound, right? And that wound is fresh, if you touch it, it hurts. When it really heals, it leaves a scar. The wounds that we experience sometimes are physical, sometimes are emotional, psychological. And I remember one of the wounds that I experienced, and even as I tell this story right now, I tell it from a place of being empowered, because as a child, this is before my mom had passed away, there were 2 older guys that were brought into my family, and those 2 older guys were very much inappropriate with me. And my parents died not knowing that anything happened. And after my parents died and I started doing forgiveness work, I literally had to write a letter to them, telling them I forgave them and I let it go. And having reached that place now, I can talk to someone that might be in that situation, because there is so much that happens to us as kids growing up that we take on, and then we take on the guilt, we take on the blame, we feel like it was my fault when you had nothing to do with it. But having done that work, I'm whole, I'm healed. And it doesn't mean that things don't continue to happen to you. Because I remember going to Hawaii on a mission, working with someone in Hawaii, and then things just shifted. And I had what I call a get-out experience in Hawaii.
This was during COVID.
And I had to get out, and I left feeling disappointed, frustrated, angry, and that was a shifting of my life to where I'm at today. Because as much as that was going to be a no, I had to learn to take that no, rather than taking it to be depression and frustration and oh me, oh my. I realized that no, I can call it to be a direction and protection.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a better place now than I was then, and I'm going even in a greater phase than I'm now than then. So all this stuff when it comes to forgiveness, because forgiveness is a daily practice. And one of the places I have to forgive every day is myself. And realizing that there's no condemnation, there's no guilt, there's no shame that I should be taking on because I'm forgiven. Right. I believe that God loves me, and I can't do anything more or anything less for God to love me.
Right.
But forgiveness, that's usually a part of the work that I do with my clients. It's the only part of the program that is 2 weeks. But that, and you, like you said it really opens your eyes to see that there's so much stuff that we're carrying that we need to let go.
Right.
But it's a process, it's a practice. And I love to use the illustration with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Kobe practiced, therefore he got the bucket. Shaquille wasn't practicing, so he would be the one that go to foul because he was not going to get it. But if we practice, we get better. So you got to practice forgiveness every day, forgiving yourself, seeking forgiveness from others, and then even where others need to be forgiven, you got to forgive them. Because if you're taking that with you every day, you got to let it go, not just for them, but for yourself.
No, seriously. Just in my practice, I just immediately felt lighter. Immediately, just feel like energy just lifted up off you. So let's talk about you becoming a life coach. I know you said that you've been teaching since you was younger, and it's kind of always been instilled in you. But what was that moment where you were like, I want to be, this is the path that I'm going to take? Like, let's talk about that moment.
Well, prior to the call, as far as I'm saying, the call for being a life coach, I had actually been a manager of a day program in LA for adults that are challenged. And I loved it. And it really taught me gratitude, because I would work with folks who can't even take the spoon from the plate to their mouth without spilling. And they're having attitude and behaviors, right? But after 10 years at that job, it became such that I was not comfortable. I felt like I was not being valued. And I remember my niece said to me, she said, "Uncle, why don't you just try Uber?" And I started driving Uber. And I'm driving Uber. I left the job, and I tasted what I call freedom of time. And I never had to ask anybody else for time off up until today. And it's so good to know that I can go when I want, do what I want. But I'm driving Uber, and I'm at church in LA. And 2 weeks ago, I was leaving LA, and I went back to Bishop Noel Jones, who was my pastor, because over 7 years ago, he preached a message, and he said, there are businesses in this church that need to be created, go create them. He said, there are books that need to be written, go write them. And that's when I said, okay, God, what can I do that I can monetize? And then I met one of my mentors, Mary Morrissey, who I did a work with her for 6 months called Quantum Leap. And having done that, it was like going into my system of this brain and deleting the mindsets that were not expansive, download the right thinking, and then did an antivirus of my being, and I came up like an iPhone 15. And that's when I said, whoa, I want to live this, but I don't just want to live this, I want to teach this. And that's when I went and I got certified. And it has actually been 5 years, September, that I became a life coach. 5 years I've been an entrepreneur from 57 to 62. And it has been, oh my God, it has been an amazing experience with its ups and downs. But I can tell you, I would never want to go back to where I am not where I'm at today. Because having my own business, seeing it expanding, doing what I'm doing as far as taking people to the best place of where they want to be, I mean, that's the greatest joy that I have. Even as I see you here doing what you're doing with other clients that I've worked with whose dreams are being manifested, man, that's my why.
I've seen that, like just going through your page, I'm just like, man, this man is really changing people's lives. I'm scrolling through your page, I'm like, man, he this person, that person. I'm like, they're doing amazing things.
And I read a book. Actually, there's a book called The Science of Getting Rich, right?
Right.
And richness is not money. It's health, relationship, and everything. And one of the things that Wallace Waddles said in the book is that everything really begins with an idea or a thought. One of the things that he emphasized too is gratitude, and also the reality that I need to be a person of increase.
Right.
And what that means is that I'm always endeavoring to add value to people. I want to make sure that when I leave here tonight, everybody that I've been in your space, I have actually added value to you. Because if I'm adding value to you, then I'm adding value to myself. And it's not about taking away, it's about giving, because the law of circulation is motion. Once you give, you're going to be receiving back.
Right, and it's not about like monetary giving. It's just
it's
energy exchange.
The energy exchange, because one of the things that I said, especially on this trip that I'm on right now, I didn't want to spend no time in no space with what I call energy vampire suckers. Because some people would suck the life out of you if you allow them to.
Yeah. I call those people monitoring spirits. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about you becoming a life coach. Let's talk about more so where you're about to go.
Well, I've lived in America over 20 years. And I tell my friends here that I feel like Daniel in Babylon. and I'm getting ready to go back home because my dream, when I started to work and I envisioned what I really would want to see happen, is I wanted to coach my nation and coach the nation of India. And I'm actually coaching Belize right now because I'm actually doing this work in Belize and I'm positioned to impact the nations of the world. So next year, June, I'll be back home. The base of Wayne Moody Life Coaching is going to be in Belize. I told all my clients after 2025, you come to Belize to see me. You're going to have to come to Belize.
No, I'm coming. I'm already coming. I got the passport and everything. Time to put some stamps on it.
So, and again, Belize is going to be my launch pad to the nations.
So reaching, that's like reaching the world.
Oh, yeah.
Impacting the entire world.
And I believe, I'm a strong believer of the word that Jesus said. Jesus said, go. He said, go where? Into all the world. And therefore, I'm going to be going into all the world. I'm going to all the world. And at 62, my life is just beginning.
Right. I mean, and then they said like Jesus wouldn't come back until the gospel is spread throughout the entire world.
And I'm sure we look and we see what's happening in the natural, but what we see in the natural is a result of what's happening in the spiritual.
Exactly.
Because you have first the spiritual, then the natural. And that's another story all by itself.
All right, so let's give people some game. Like as far as like being a life coach, like what can you tell like some of the people that might watch this platform? A lot of the people that watch this platform, they're either millennials or they're between the ages of like 24, 30. Like what could you tell them to allow them to achieve their dreams and be the best possible version of themselves?
Well, one thing that I do know is that each and every one of us is sent on purpose, no matter who you are. I have a niece of mine, she diagnosed with Down syndrome. And when she was born, the doctor said that she would not live no more than 7 years. But today she's in her 30s. And I tell you, she is the life of the party. And if she would be taken out of our family, there would be a vacuum there. Yeah. So no matter who you are sent with purpose. But one of the things is that in the world that we live, a child is born, and that child comes in, honestly, just like a clean slate, like a computer. But then that child is then being programmed by its care providers, the life circumstances and situations. And I heard someone said once that we come into this world and we come into the system of this world and they put us in a box. You go to school and they put you in a box. And then you go to college and you're in a box. And you finish college and you're in a box. And you get a job and you're in a box. And then you build a house in a box. You get the car, you drive in a box. And then you die and they put you in the box. Right. But for you to really live beyond the box, you got to think outside the box. Yeah. So the young people today, I'm excited because as an elder, I believe it's my responsibility to pass the baton. And I was saying earlier to Aaron that I believe there's a disconnect because a lot of older folks are somewhat disgruntled with the younger folks. And they're like cursing the younger folks, these entitled, whatever. And then the younger folks are looking at the elder folks and saying, these no good, whatever they've done on this, look what they've done to us. So there's a disconnect. But I believe a great part of the solution is an interconnection between the generations. Because I remember driving Uber and I literally claimed to be what I call a millennial advocate. Because I would listen to the young people, and honestly, over 80% of the folks that drove in my car with me were young people who definitely had a sense of who they were. And I would always leave them when they finished my ride, telling them, man, you're a gift. And I honor you for the gift that you are. And I say even today, a lot of where the disconnect is because we as elders misunderstand the young people. I mean, the young people, they definitely want to do great things. They're not perfect, but there's need for relationship. Right. Because if there's no relationship, it's just going to be like antagonistic towards each other. But what I would say to the young person is be patient with those older folks who might not understand. And what I would say to the older folks is realize that it is our responsibility to pass the baton. And I'm trusting, I'm very, very confident because it's you and Aaron. I am very confident that you guys are going to take the baton and take us to the next level.
And just take off with it like Sha'Carri Richardson. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell? You want to talk about? You want to tell the people?
Well, I am available, whether it's just in passing or whether it's in actually building a relationship. And if you want to find me, hey, you go on Facebook, Wayne Moody. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's Wayne as Supermodel. And how I got that name.
Wait, you said wait. You can't just skip over that. You said Wayne what?
Wayne as Supermodel, right?
Okay.
I was driving Uber in LA and I had a couple stylists in my car, and these guys were like, man, you have that image, why don't you put it out there as a print model? So I have a friend in North Carolina, and I flew out there and I did a photo shoot, and he said, man, you got to put yourself out there, you have to have an Instagram account. I didn't have a clue what was Instagram. So I went and I created an account, and my friends as a teenager, they used to call me Waynaz, right? So I created an Instagram account, Waynaz, W-A-Y-N-A-Z, Supermodel.
Right.
And that's why, if you go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever I'm at, you're going to get motivational stuff. I remember one of my clients, he just found me on Instagram. He's a former NFL player, and he reaches out to me and he said, man, I've been seeing your work. I would love for you to do some work with me. So, but I'm excited, and what I would want to say, man, is that I believe the best days of our lives are today and ahead of us.
Right.
So, hey, if you're young, man, you're strong, you got life, it's time for you to really become aware of who you are. And particularly, I have a real passion for our people. When I say our people, a part of the diaspora, because we are greatness. Just being, we're greatness.
Right. You say how much we worth just being?
Hey, if you Google the price of melanin, the average person of color has at least $40 million worth of melanin. And it cannot be extracted.
Walking around.
So, but there's a disconnect, because if we're led to believe that we're not worthy, then we're acting like we're not worthy.
Right.
So it begins with our thinking and our perception of who we are. Because if I'm supreme, I don't have to tell you that I'm supreme.
No.
If I'm supreme, I'm just supreme.
You just living it out.
You're just living it out.
But there's one more thing that you were telling me about. Somebody's building a town in Belize. What? Can you elaborate on that?
I was in Florida last year, right? And a friend of mine who's an attorney, he knew a couple that lived in Houston, Charles Gentry and his wife, and they were actually working on a project called A Town Called Freedom in Belize.
Right.
And my friend in Florida told him, man, if you're going to Belize, you got to know Wayne Moody. So I meet Charles. Charles and I connect virtually, and he was getting ready to go back to Belize because they had bought a piece of property on one of the islands. But Charles wanted to go and see if he could find a home where they were going to rent because they were relocating. So I connected him with my assistant in Belize, Joe. Joe got the home for them. They moved in March. They love it. They're not coming back. They've actually they're already getting the land, and they're actually going to be creating a housing in Belize, and it is going to be fantastic. But the focus of it is taking what we have in America as far as the arts, music, production, to Belize. And, what we're having here right now, this production, Charles, who is actually, he has an amazing studio. They're my production team when I get back to Belize.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm walking into this thing, and I remember one time they were saying to me, they said, man, all we're going to do with you, we're going to get you ready, we're going to get the system set, and let you talk.
Let you cook.
I'll do my part, and they'll do their part. They will create. So I'm envisioning you and Aaron in Belize next year.
Hey, I'm with it. I don't know if Aaron, you with it? Let's go. I'm ready, especially with the town that they're building. I think that is just so cool, especially because with everything that's going on in America right now, it's like definitely want to have some water. Get dip off too.
So through you, whatever means people need to. Whether it's just wanting to talk, just want to ask a question, I'll be more than happy to make myself available, because this is what it's all about. It's about each one teaching one. And I've learned so much from you. I mean, I've never seen what you're doing before, but being a part of this, I'm learning right now as I'm here. So it's an intergenerational interconnection. It's pouring from each other, and honestly, I wouldn't be nowhere else but right where I'm at today with you. You make me proud. You make me feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
No, you are, and it's interesting because you showed up in my life at a time that was like, you know, right on time. Because you know, me growing up, I played a lot of basketball. I played a lot of sports growing up, and we have coaches, but I never had a coach for building the dream after basketball, after your hoop dreams are over with. It's like I never had a coach after that. So you kind of showed up in a perfect time. Yeah, and I appreciate that for sure. Is one more time, where can we find you at?
Wayne Moody on Facebook, Wayne as Supermodel on Instagram, and if you want to go to my webpage, it's ministeroftransformation.bz. Ministeroftransformation.bz, Belize, right? And hey, if you ever come to Belize,
no, it's not. If I'm ever
no, I'm talking about the audience.
Okay.
I'm talking about the audience because my dream is to coach the nation of Belize, and I'm coaching the nation of Belize right now. Mm-hmm. So Belize is going to be transformed. It's going to be continuing transforming, and Belize is going to be a beacon of light shining in Central America and the world.
You say you got a group of students down there.
Oh yeah, my cousin in New York, they have a scholarship program where they raise funds for some kids on the South Side. Mm-hmm. And last year I told him I wanted to make a contribution. I wanted to coach the kids. So last year I started with the first set of kids, and there were kids in their first, second, third, and fourth year. Mm-hmm. And I told the ones in their first year, mm-hmm. I said I'll be here for your graduation in person. Right. This year I started with them again because the ones that were in their fourth year left. So I've been coaching the kids on the south side of Belize who are scholarship recipients who can't afford to pay the fees. But the end of last year, our Minister of Tourism in Belize, one of my clients met him and said, hey, I have a life coach. His name is Wayne Moody. Right. And the Minister of Tourism said, that's my coach. He was my junior high math teacher. He reaches out to me and he said, I want you to coach me. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually coaching the Minister of Tourism, his managers, and I'm coaching from the top, as far as the government minister, mm-hmm. to the students on the south side who are scholarship recipients.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So that's kind of like one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast with you is because Live from the Living Room is a platform where, you know, we showcase usually artists, you know, but in my opinion, we all are creators.
Oh yeah, I am.
And it's largely centered around hip hop. I don't know if you ever read KRS-One. He has a book called The Gospel of Hip Hop.
No.
Probably never read it. All right, so in the book, there are 5 elements of hip hop. So the first element is spoken word, rapping. The second element is the b-boy, breakdancing. Then you got the DJs. Then you got the graffiti artists. And then the fifth element is knowledge and wisdom. Mm. So me bringing you on here, you are the fifth element right now.
Yes.
I'm going to write a book called The Sixth Element, but that's going to be a whole different story.
By the way, my book is going to be completed at the end of this year.
Right, yeah. You said you had a book. Do you want to talk about that, or you want to hold off on that?
No, I can give you a little bit of insight because the book is Meeting with the Executive Director, which is over 4 years of practice and principles that I've been doing, reference to spending time with the infinite, with God. Mm. And the things that I've been doing that has worked for me. Right. And just this week I heard that, the word author means that you're an authority on what you say you're writing. Mm. If you say you're an author, there's something that you're an authority in. Mm-hmm. And if there's anything that I know, which is me, I know what it is like for me to be spending time with God. And nobody has more authority for me than me with the time I've been spending with God. Right. So, and it's about just things that I've done in the last 44 plus years that helps me to truly be centered and be connected with God.
That's a wonderful book. I can't wait to read it. Can't wait to read it. You said by the end of this year?
Oh yeah, actually when I went to I was in LA 2 weeks ago, and I went back to church with Bishop Noel Jones, and I went to tell him thanks because I'm heading back home, and I told him I'm having a summit next year, and he's like, I'm coming for the summit. He said, and you know what? I'm going to write the forward for your book. So I got to finish the book by the end of this year, and I'm writing on this trip. Every time I'm in the air, I'm writing.
Every time you take a trip
in the air, I'm flying. While I'm flying in the air,
isn't it something about flying that just like gives you like more like thoughts and like?
Well, I'm closer. I'm definitely apart from the earth. It's out of this world. So the book is out of this world.
That's great. That's awesome. I think we're gonna come to a close. I think we over here. We got 30 minutes. I mean, unless you got some more you want to say.
Well, I want to be authentic reference to the journey as a business owner.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people see the glamour, they see what you're doing, but they don't know what's happening behind the scene.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember when I actually first started this process, when I did the first 6 months, you're talking about going at it with not having the money, then starting the business with not having the money, and then over the last 5 years, just doing what I do, still living, still managing, and coming to the place now where I'm looking at the liabilities that I have as far as the debt that I have, but then I'm looking at the intellectual property that I have. And I'm going to be getting rid of this liability, but the intellectual property is where I'm going to actually see things expand, because here comes people with the money. I have the intellectual property. I give them the intellectual property. They give me the money, and there's a fair exchange. So it's always an exchange, but the journey to where I'm at today has not been just smooth sails.
Right.
Because I've been through times when I don't even see what's going to happen tomorrow. I've been times through where the rent is due, the payments are due, and I'm like, man, I need clients to make sure they deposit. And not having a 9 to 5, you don't have a check that is going in.
Right.
And there are times when you as a client would just make a deposit right on the right time. But I realized that you got to go through to become.
Right.
You got to go through to become.
It's really, entrepreneurship is really a faith journey.
Oh, yeah. And that's where I think, for the most part, we should be going. Because folks live, retire, and die. But we're never being taught to create our own and be sustained. And it's easier to stay on the plantation, I call it.
Yeah.
Because when you got to check in, it's just like somebody else is actually running your life. You're actually serving somebody else's dream.
Right.
I mean, when you go to that job, is it your dream?
Nah.
I mean, is it your dream, or are you just serving somebody else's dream? And I mean, it's and to do what you do, especially if you step out there as an artist, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, it's like stepping outside the box. It's getting outside your comfort zone, because once you settle, you never get the best. And most people settle and not step out of their comfort zone. And if you're going to grow, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable in the interest of growth.
Yeah.
And for me, it was at 57 when I actually decided. But hey, man, the younger you are, you can start. And you can start as a kid as far as being an entrepreneur.
I try to, so one of the things that I do, I teach. I'm a substitute teacher. I'm a substitute teacher in the schools. And for me, I think it kind of goes like hand in hand in what I'm doing as far as like being an artist and like being able to reach out to the youth. Yeah, I do have to like clock in, but at the same time, every time I go into these schools, these kids like looking at me like I'm some type of famous celebrity. They ask me every day, like, "Is you famous?" I'm like, amongst you guys, yeah. But it gave me an opportunity to like reach them. And like today I was like, just drawing pictures like these characters and stuff like that. And they were just all like kind of like really intrigued by it. So, sometimes things kind of line up in the right way. And who knows, like later on, those kids might be the ones that are going to be feeding me later, paying their way. Like, oh, let me buy this from you. Let me buy that from you. Who knows? But it's all a divine alignment, But you're right. You got to jump out there sometimes.
Well, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to capture this moment, because even this recording that you're doing, even after we're finished, it's going to be going.
Yeah.
It's going to be going. It's going to be going. And these are seeds that are being sown. And I do believe that you sow a seed and it goes from an acorn to an oak tree to a forest. And my prayer is that people that hear this, that it would actually fall in good soil, and that would bring forth great fruit beyond even our imagination. Because especially in the times we're living, when people might be so perplexed and people might be so overwhelmed, but the reality is that which is within us is greater than anything that is outside of us.
True.
I mean, the power that breeds us is greater than the circumstance, the situations, all the things that are real. But the power within is far more than anything that is actually we're experiencing.
One, I just want to thank you for just being my life coach. Thank you for showing up at the time that you did, and for coming on this platform, being one of the first people that I've interviewed that does what you do. But I would like to take this time and this opportunity to present you with this one of these hats. Okay. So these hats was especially crafted for you.
Wow.
You got it says Wayne on the back. We got the Belizean flag on the side. But when you put on the hat, it's a representation of you being in your highest, you operating in your highest capacity,
Oh.
When you put on that hat, you're one with the Creator.
Yes.
So,
man, thanks.
That's my gift to you.
Thank you. And this is one of the fundamental principles of dream building. Everything begins with a thought. And you thought about this, you put the energy into it, and then here it's manifested. And that's how the dream works. You think it, you put the energy into it, and then it's manifested. But there is need for support, because I can go in the gym and work out by myself, but it makes a big difference when I get a coach to actually kick my butt and get me to do what I need to do, because that's what coaches do. Sometimes, you might ask your coach, dang, coach, do you love me? But the coach knows what's in you, and that's why they do what they do in order to get you to the place where when it's crunch time and you need to pull that extra out, you do it, and afterwards you're like, dang, I didn't know I had that. But and the coach is always seeing you what you might not see in yourself initially. That's why you get scouts. Scouts come and they see, and things might not be perfect for you, but you realize that you got something, but you don't really know the depth of what you have. And think of LeBron James, who high schooler has to choose college or professional. He chose professional, but everything was in him already.
It was.
But the coaches brought it out. So, hey, you need a coach, you have a dream. There's nobody, I believe, like myself, that can take you to take that dream from conception to manifestation.
Right away. All right. And everybody, you know where to find him. Wayne Moody. And this has been the first interview on Live from the Living Room. And we out.
Yes.